My name is TJ, and we read fantasy. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, so today we're with Weiqi Wang, author of Code of Rainbow. There are currently 2 volumes, correct?
Yes. Third one is due to release today, but waiting for.
Third one is dropping right now. Very cool. So before we get going on the general questions, I just wanted to know sort of what was your inspiration for this book, and how did you? What do you think makes it special or sets it apart?
Well, I think, in my own opinion, I think that the most special part of this book series is that I'm trying to merge magic fantasy with sci-fi. So usually people would think like, magic is just incompatible with science, but I'm a scientist myself, and after learning so much in different universities and different places and countries, I was thinking, I think somehow I find a point there that um, something about magic might be explained by some scientific theories, although the scientific theories could be very hardcore, but I think there's a way to link them together, and I think I can put it in a way that although this, for those people, for my readers who doesn't really have scientific expertise, they could still understand it. So I think that's the most unique part of the series.
That's awesome. And just to follow up on that, I like anything that I would call fantastic. So for me, when I read sci-fi the first time, I didn't distinguish it from fantasy until someone later told me, "Oh, they're different." And I'm like, "Why do they have to be different?"
Out there too, right? Out there too. I feel for you. So in the beginning, I thought that magic fantasy it should be like an independent genre, and sci-fi is an independent genre. But actually, because I was born, I'm not born in America. I was born in China, and they're like there's 2 different genres. When I came to U.S., I suddenly realized they're totally they combine into a genre called fantasy. That's
fantastic. I'm glad someone's finally doing it, and I'll be following you through all your books.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Oh, I said I'm glad someone's finally doing it, and I'm going to be following you throughout your books.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, very cool. So what were you doing, or where were you at when the idea of Code of Rainbow first came up?
I was in University of Oxford doing my doctorate. So back then I was a student, and I'm doing my PhD degree. I'm in the process of getting it. I'm learning it as a student. So that's quite a while ago. It's like 2010.
Okay.
Even earlier than that, 2010. Oh, yeah. So that's when I was learning all these, and I was a big fantasy reader ever since I was a kid. So I kept reading, and then I'm a scientific student. So while I was learning about science, there's a background voice of fantasy like echoing all the time. So I've been thinking both ways along, and finally I think there's a way to link them, to bridge them, because when people call magic, it's just a terminology, it's a word that people invent, and when we call science, it's also a term. So they're referring to some phenomenon that magic refers to some phenomenon that people cannot understand or explain. Science means the opposite, for those parts that people can explain or understand. But it may be due to just something that we don't understand. Doesn't mean that it's not scientific. So that's
no, that makes me so happy too. My least favorite thing in a fantasy book is when you're reading it and magic happens and they don't bother to explain anything. And to me, it seems lazy. Like, oh, it just goes boom, right? Or like and I love Tolkien, but Gandalf flashes magic and no one knows what happens, and there's no system, and there's no rules, there's no structure. And I like the rules, so I'm so happy you're going to be doing that.
Yeah, I totally feel you. It's like if some like a mage or wizard suddenly summon a ball lightning, it's just magic, right? But actually, ball lightning is a scientific phenomenon. It's very rare, but it is scientific. It is real. It's in the real world. It's called ball lightning. So there's a way that people call magic. People choose to call magic or choose to call science. It's many people are just biased. So
yeah,
we have to see. Yeah.
Very cool. We're on the same team.
Yeah.
Other than fame, Yeah, other than fame, fortune, and immortality, what causes you to write?
Right. So I got quite a long answer for you, but I'm gonna brief it. So first of all, I think I just like to express because I've been reading so much. I've been learned quite a lot in the road of science. I think I was just filled up with thoughts. So I want to express my thoughts in my book and let people know what I think, and
Yeah,
hopefully it can contribute and help my readers in any way. That would make me happy. And also, I think any literature work by itself has artistic values. So as
yeah,
long as your work is positive, I think it'll contribute to the society. You know. And another thing is, I think nowadays, like the sense of responsibilities are fading away from people. Many people are no longer like appreciate the sense of responsibility. When they make a mistake, they tend to just escape. They don't want to take the responsibility. They just want to walk away. So in my work, that because the series is for young adults, for children, for teens, I think it also serves as educational purposes. I want my teen readers to learn to appreciate the sense of responsibilities, to try to do the right things. And even if you make mistakes, you face it, not instead of just escaping.
yeah. I think fantasy is a great place to do that in general too. If the book that I'm reading is not in some way morally engaging, like if something bad happens and nothing is learned, or there's no consequences, it really offends me. I don't like it, so I tend to move on. Even George R. Martin, who tends to be, like bad things happen and it's not for any particular reason, but there's still cause and effect, and consequences catch up no matter what. So even even the butcher himself does that. He kills off all his characters sometimes, but I think he's got a good reason for it most of the time. You know.
I agree with you. Meanwhile, George R. R. Martin's Game of Thrones is for adult. They're really heavily adult elements. So for young adult, for teens, you need to be a little bit more careful on that, right? Because you want to educate your teen readers to be doing the right thing, at least the right intention. Yeah.
Good, good. What issues in your own life have you had to wrangle with or wrestle with in order to get where you are?
So what I was trying to understand what exactly you mean. You
Uh,
mean
so for me, so I went to the army, I went to war, I got PTSD, and I still try to write, even though it's hard. So I have to struggle through some things. What are your struggles?
I see. So I think one of the struggles is that I was always in the road towards science. Fantasy is like, as I said, people tend to believe that magic and science are just totally different things. They're opposite to each other. But I'm just having my mindset, trying to combine them. I think that's a big wrangle. So when I try to convince myself this is the right way to do, when I try to convince myself, this is something interesting instead of something ridiculous. That's first of all, I need to convince myself. And once I'm well past that. And another thing is that we write scientific papers, we write journal papers in medicine stuff. That writing style is very different from writing fantasy, because in fantasy, you have to attract your readers into your story. You have to build an interesting thing. Your vocabulary is going to be very different. And I'm not a native English speaker. I'm a native Chinese speaker. So, there are tons of challenges. I couldn't even count it, but there are lots of wrangles.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So I went to grad school, but I didn't get my PhD, but I got my MA, and I found that when you're working on your thesis or longer papers and you're doing the academic talk, as it were, and considering the higher implications of blah blah blah, blah, and it's not for good writing, and then you try and write poetry or a short story or anything, and you have to get rid of it for a second. You have to push it out of your brain, otherwise it sounds terrible.
Yes. And also, scientific papers are usually read by the postdoc and above. They are adults. Their brain is already developed.
Yeah.
I'm writing a book that towards the young teens. So
Yeah.
consider their understanding level. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What is your most unpopular opinion? This one's kind of fun.
How to define unpopular? I was thinking maybe my opinion of people's bias on magic versus science it may be unpopular because people I don't know. I can't get into everybody's head, and I don't know what they're thinking. But people around me, including my family, they all say magic is just unreal. Science, it is real. But I was trying to convince them, look, you are defining things that you cannot understand as unreal and magic, but things that you are educated with as science, as real. So I think there might be another way to do things. So I don't know if this content unpopular, but this is.
I'm hearing some of your quantum physics in the background there. When people just assume everything is cut and dry, it's very simple, and it's like, is it though?
Yeah.
We don't have proof that it is.
Yeah, listen to it. So have you heard of Schrodinger's cat? That theory?
Yes.
So it's like when I first heard about this series, I was like, oh my god, this is a genius, because he's a scientist. He's a hardcore scientist, and he's trying to say that if a cat is locked in a box, you can't see it. Then you don't know whether it's still living or dead. You only know that when you open the box and see the real cat and check the status. If it's alive, then it's alive. If it's dead, it's dead. That's called Schrodinger's cat. So basically means that it could be, once you don't see it with your own eyes, there could be indefinite possibilities. And that is very contradictory to the traditional science. Yeah. But it almost sounds like a magic. So if you isolate something from your eyesight, you don't know what it's about until you open it. So I won't expand this topic, but yeah, I think this is really interesting.
No, I understand, and that is sort of where I think a lot of science is going. Is the more we find out, we get better microscopes, we get better telescopes, we see further, and every time our expectations are surpassed. We don't know what's there, and then it's like, whoa, apparently we were wrong about that. Apparently it's different, and I love how there's still so many things that have no answer.
That's why we need to keep learning,
Yeah, I know, but that's the magic in science for me is we don't know everything yet, and it's kind of an adventure. You have to go find it. Okay, if you could be any character from a story that you've read or written, what would it be and why?
This is a hard one. I don't want to be self-righteous, but I really like my own character. So I like Harry Potter too. I like Game of Thrones. I like some other stories, but if they ask me to be a character that's in the story, I will have problem picking one, because Game of Thrones, even Jon Snow is a debatable one. I think I like some character that has a strong heart and not only just gave up his work to someone else. Like Jon Snow, he's a very kind man. He did so much things, but he tend to not fight for the thrones, but give it to someone else. But to me, that's kind of like a guilt. If you deserve this, and if you're the best one to lead people, to give people peace, then you should take the thrones. So many characters in other authors' work, they're brilliant. It's just if you ask me to be one of them, I'd probably still be the character that I built. So,
what's his name?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about him.
The leading character in my story is called Sorin. So it's a combination of sewing and flame. So basically, his name is given by his uncle when he saw the sewing flame due to the war. So yeah.
Sewing flames. That's awesome.
Sewing flame. Yeah.
That's very cool. I like metaphors that break between mediums or things like that. So like when I'm doing writing myself, I like to think of it as quilting or sewing. You sew the words together because they break apart and you form them anew. But sewing flame, that's just amazing. Very cool. If you could learn any type of magic, ability, or spell, what would it be?
That's a fun one.
Yeah.
So, probably flying spell. I'm sure that lots of kids will agree with me. Flying is just so cool. But in my book, so in the first 2-3 books, many spells were not revealed yet, but later on there will be prediction spells, like mind reading spells. I think those were cool too.
Very cool. Wow. Good answers. Okay, so which animal would you choose as a familiar? Did you know what I mean by familiar?
Not exactly sure.
Okay, so like some wizards or some witches will have an animal that sort of concentrates their power. So like a witch will have a cat, or some people have dragons, or basically it means a pet companion
I
that
see. I
that
see.
yeah aids you.
I'm very familiar with that notion then because my book has a lot of things on that. So in fact, in my book I gave it another name called Magimo. It's basically a joint words of magic and animal. So I call it Magimo. And
Magic.
first, yes, Magimo. Yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
in the first book, if you see the book cover, there's a little white cat on there. The leading character Soren's Bond Magimo. So I call that Bond. So if a wizard give birth, so if the wizard incubate an egg or a baby animal, and the animal recognizes the wizard as his buddy, I call that bond. It's almost like a parenting bonding to their babies, right? So I
yeah.
call it bond animal. So yeah, that's your familia, right? So my familia would be in that case a cat because I'm a cat person. I'm also a dog person, but I'm a cat person. So when I was very little in my primary school, I adopted an orphan cat. It's Snow White. It's also deaf. When people, some people know that if a cat is Snow White and blue eyes and pink nose tip, is deaf. So it's like a genetic linkage of this, the appearance with the functionality of the ears. So I adopted that one. I call it Snorer. That's actually the origination of that cat Magimo's name in the book is called Snorer. So partially it's in the memory for her.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I bet you most writers tend to be cat people. We've interviewed a lot now, and everyone I meet, it's like there's one dog person out of 10, 9 of them are cats, cats, cats. We love cats too. They're just, I think they're smarter, but that's being biased because dogs are smart in a different way. I can perceive the cat's intelligence.
Yes, but don't take me wrong. The leading character is Bond Magimo's cat, but there are tons of different types of Magimo. So I call that Magimo. You call that familiar. Including dragons in this book. So what I'm trying to say is, again, it sounds like self-advertising, but I'm trying to say is this word that I'm trying to build is enormous. There are all kinds of things in it. So including Magimals and familiars, there are all kinds of things. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to start using Magimal. I think it's better.
Thank you.
Pretty exciting.
Thank you.
Okay, if you could ask your readers anything, what would you ask them?
Right. So I think this is related to the last one. The number one I would ask them is please treat animals with love. So a big hit in my books is that I've seen people mistreating animals. No, sorry, not animals, but animals. I've seen people mistreating animals, and some activities that they're doing is really cruel. It's intolerable. So there's a specific chapter in book 2 that I was calling everyone to stop doing that because I don't want to expand this topic because some things were just bloody. They're a little too much for young teens, but it exists. So when I write this book, this is one of my intention actually since day one. So I realized that there are lots of books in the market, and many books that just want their readers have random carol fun. I want to do something different. I want my readers to be educated in different ways, including but not limited to this one. So if you mistreat animals, that's just sin. So I want my readers to be aware of all those bloody activities out there. We are living under the sunshine. There are darkness out there. So many wild animals were mistreated, were butchered, were tortured, were teleported, sold. They're suffering different torture. So if there's one thing I'll ask from my readers, please help protect wildlife and animals.
Oh man, I think we're best friends.
I'm sorry.
I said I think we're best friends. That's the one thing. I look at politics, and we don't need to get into anything specific, but when I see people and they seem to not care about the environment, it blows my mind. And for the readers and listeners right now, I'm sure you're very aware we're in a period of mass extinction. The animals are dying off so fast, faster than ever before since the Ice Age.
Yes.
And it's our fault entirely. So that it's very hard.
Yes, people tend to not care about a lot of things. Like the animals were dying like directly or indirectly due to humans' activities. They, people, some, the bad people could just directly butcher them, or, would just throw, plastic bags everywhere, and then the wild animals just eat it and die. So maybe the second thing I'll ask for my readers is protect the environment. So
Yeah, I'm there. We're gonna make a change, Weiqi.
yes.
What setting in your fantasy worlds do you find most inspiring? So is it like, do you like to write about space or the oceans or forests, or what setting do you find most fantastic?
So sorry, when you say what setting in the real world or fantastic world?
I,
Fantasy world.
I know I did in the what real world setting do you like to put in your books? That's a better way of saying it. It's hard for me to say that, I think.
Hmm. That's a good question. So when I think about that, so maybe this is the one. So when I first went to Oxford, so Chinese educational system, college system are very similar to US ones. We have like schools or colleges and then departments under them.
Yeah.
But in Oxford and Cambridge, and I think there's another university in UK, I'm not too sure what's the name is it. Their system is very different. They're like colleges are independent from department. So here in US, we have school of medicine and then department of immunology, things like that, right? So
Yeah.
the school of medicine is a big umbrella. The department in immunology is it's just one department within it. But in Oxford and Cambridge, they have like department of, let's say, engineering science or bioengineering or immunology. But then they have, instead of a school of medicine, they have College of Hartford. So what does that mean? When I first got there, was what is Hartford for? And it turns out that it's just a, a big summer camp, something like that. So it's a place that embraces all kinds of disciplinaries, embraces all students from different disciplinaries and gather them together, provide accommodation, dining, and let them talk to each other so that, they get to know people from different disciplines, and, their thoughts could, there could be a larger brainstorm in that, you know, in that sense. So this is one thing that I really think is cool. Although in the beginning, I was very confused. I don't know what it's about. I don't know why. But later on, when I was better and better educated, I started to appreciate this setting.
Yeah.
This is one setting I learned from Oxford and Cambridge, and I put it in the book actually. So the Magic Institute in the book has a similar settings. So yeah,
Awesome.
maybe this could answer your question.
Yeah, I did. It did. So like a magical academy and a forum where you get to share your ideas, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's so cool.
And by the way, so people, my early readers tend to call, they tend to say that my book somehow reads like Harry Potter because there's a Magic Institute in the book. So I don't know how to comment on this, in a way that I'm happy they're comparing me to Harry Potter, but in a way that I think is different. It's a little unfair just to call me like Harry Potter because there's a Magic Institute in the book.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And then people, Harry Potter wasn't even the first magical institute.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read Ursula K. Le Guin. She had a wizard school.
Mm-hmm.
Ursula K. Le Guin, she wrote it in the 70s. But Harry Potter is very big, so they tend to put it on everything. I think it's because some people don't read anything besides Harry Potter and fantasy. It's a good start, but you got to move on too. There's a lot out there.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So we did kind of cover the character aspect again, but other than Soflame, do you have another favorite character that's just really cool and fun to write?
Sure. So basically, so in most of the books, in my opinion, they have like leading male character, leading female character. So in my book, I have a leading male character, leading female character, leading magic animal character, and there's a special boy in this book called Hogan, whose name is also a combination of two words, half dragon. So I command them as Hogan. So that I like that character too. So he's a good friend of the leading character Sorim, which is so in flame, as I mentioned. So he's a half dragon, Hogan. So that character, he's like in my world settings in the storyline. The history is like human and dragon. They were just mortal enemy.
Yeah.
Dragon used to enslave human, and human, started evolution war and won it, so that they locked dragon on the island. And that boy his mother is a human, his father is a dragon. So he's putting like responsibilities on both sides on his shoulder. and he's trying to cover his true identity, because that's not a good thing in the areas where he was born. But he turned to like he just accidentally met the leading character, and they become friends. So I like that boy too. It somehow reflects the the different problems in the reality that where we are living, but it's in a fantasy world. So I like that one. Yeah.
All right. Well, where can we find you online? And is there any book reading or book con or event that you're going to be at anytime